Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are at in this fine land. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about disaster research. My name is Todd DeVoe. I am the Director of Emergency Management. What is my title? Director of Emergency Management at Titan HST. I'm also an academic. I teach at the post-secondary level, and I love researching and doing things and finding more information and sharing that information with you all here. And you know what? I was asked the other day, what is the purpose of disaster research? And that's a good question, right? Why do we do this? I mean, at the end of the day, we respond to things, we do things, and we put all the trucks back in the barn, and we go on with our life. But why do we have an academic area of disaster research? What does it do? Well, disaster research allows professionals in the field, practitioners, if you will, to see how things are done around the world and the best practices, if you will. Best practices is one of those terms that, is kind of, again, getting squishy. What does that mean? Well, we see that the successes are, right? That's great, right? But we also see where the failures occurred. And I think we can learn a lot more from the failures. And this week, the new movie, or TV show, I should say, on Apple TV called 5 Days at Memorial, based on the book by Sherry Fink, goes deeper into the human side of what happened during that 5 days at Memorial Hospital. And if you guys don't remember, basically what happened was Memorial Hospital was cut off by everything due to the rising floodwaters after the levee broke. And they had diminishing supplies, lots of sick people, obviously, in the hospital were getting sicker, and ends up being that 45 people perished in that event, right at that one hospital. And so the research goes into the why did those 45 people perish. And there's speculation, although it was never proven, and that maybe they're giving lethal doses of medication to end their suffering. So basically euthanasia. Again, that was not proven in a court of law, although that speculation is still there. So what decisions were being made at the hospital at the incremental points? And this is where the disaster research kind of comes into play to help us go through that decision-making process and how those incremental decisions ended up being one really bad outcome, right? So it wasn't just one decision to say, hey, we need to do this, which caused the deaths of those 45 people. It was missteps all the way through. And this is where we need to learn about that. And that's not going to be learned unless somebody takes the time to go in, like Daniel Ulrich, if you will, who wrote Black Wave and Disaster Recovery or Resiliency, I'm sorry. Eric McNulty and his team from the MPLI going to different disasters and taking a look at the decision-making process and the outcomes. That is where we learn what those decisions and how that works. Excuse me. So that's what disaster research is all about. And it often conducts needs assessments and what the organization needs or what the jurisdiction needs are based upon going to the next disaster. Now, one of the mistakes that we make wholeheartedly across the board is we're always fighting the last war, right? We're always fighting the last disaster. So, for instance, after 9/11 came, we put a ton of money into Homeland Security and hardening targets across the country. Okay, fair enough. But we also, because of that, we left the idea of all hazards approach, not necessarily left, but reduced the concept of putting money into all hazards approach because we're focusing on one area. And then, of course, we had Hurricane Katrina occur, which I guess maybe occurred. Yeah, so we had Hurricane Katrina occur, and which we saw the outcome of not being able to put money into the resilience and to mitigation of issues, right? Because we knew that those levees had issues, right? And they just weren't funded for various different reasons. Then we go into, let's talk about COVID here for a little bit. I know that we are now focusing on extremely so infectious diseases and bolstering up, the CDC and putting money into that, which we should be doing, right? I don't disagree with it. But are we doing that in lieu of other areas where we should be shoring up our infrastructure? And for instance, cybersecurity is one of those things that we really should be taking a deeper look into. And we're going to talk about cybersecurity next week. But those are the areas. I was just reading a book regarding how realistically cyber issues are going to be our biggest problem going forward. And we're seeing this happen today, right? We're in an unstable situation, in Eastern Europe, with Russia looking at different ways of hacking China, and is looking at different ways of hacking into our systems. And we're vulnerable in some cases, especially in the grid, to those things. So what are we doing to shore up that as well, right? And it seems to be that the media is paying attention to certain things and getting the highlights on that, right? And getting everything, the spotlight, I should say, on those issues that they're talking about. Yet, that may not be the area that is really the most vulnerable. And this is where disaster researchers come into play, right? They do a great job into really taking a look at everything that we're facing, right? And what things that we need to be doing to mitigate those issues that are coming up, and gives suggestions on how to make everything better, or at least moving towards that direction. So as professionals in business continuity and emergency management and risk management, right, we need to be looking at the research that is being done in various different research centers across the world into disaster mitigation. I think that's a critical part right there, and partnering up with those organizations to make sure that we are learning from them, but also what our concerns are, and if they could take a look, excuse me, if they could take a look at those other issues that we have concerns about, right? And I want to again go back, talk a little bit about cybersecurity specifically. Is that this is an issue that everybody faces, right? How many of you received spam phone calls? Well, we all have. How many of you received spam emails? Well, we all have, right? And they're phishing, I should say. And they're looking at, or text messages now. They're becoming more sophisticated to get into your systems. We've all have to take, if you work for an organization, schools, large corporations, we're all taking cybersecurity prevention classes, or at least little vignettes, if you will, to say, yep, we know what to do, not to fall for those bad emails, right? So there's definitely a problem, and it's costing companies around the world billions of dollars in infrastructure to protect themselves from these cyber attacks. And the problem with cyber attacks too is that we have to be correct 100% of the time, where the cyber bad guy just has to get in and they're patient, right? And they just keep hitting, keep chipping away until they can find the kink in the armor and get into our systems. Well, excuse me. So this is why disaster research is critical, right? They are taking a look at those areas which really need to be inspected, explored, and written about. And I hope that you all take the time today to support disaster researchers, to go take a look at disaster research centers across the country, across the world, see what they're working on, and see how you can implement some of the great research that's being done in the world of cybersecurity, specifically because I think this is what we should be dealing with here as business continuity professionals. And I want to make some clear, right? We need to be working with our IT partners. We need to be working with our law enforcement partners. And we need to be working with our operations side of our house here, because all of those areas, right, when we have a cyber attack, are going to need to come together so we can continue providing services to our organization and to our clients. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening to me today. And for more information, please check out titanhst.com. We are actually putting out some pretty good information ourselves with our resources. So until next time, everybody, please stay safe, stay hydrated.